Beneath the ordinary world lies a veil, and behind it, the voices of the lost still whisper.
We are your guides into the shadows, where true crime meets the paranormal.
From chilling crimes to haunted histories, we uncover the stories that refuse to rest.
This is Veil of Echoes.
March 2000. A stretch of forest in Washington. No lights, no houses. No one meant to be there. Down an embankment, hidden from the road, there was a vehicle. A Jeep Cherokee, crushed into the trees, glass scattered into the dirt, metal bent in on itself. The kind of crash that doesn't leave survivors. But when they looked inside, there was no one there. No body. No sign of where she went. Only what she left behind. Her wallet, her clothes, her belongings, untouched. As if she had stepped out and never came back. And then, they noticed something else. Something wrong. The damage didn't match. The scene didn't fit. And what first looked like an accident began to feel like something else entirely. 23-year-old Leah Roberts had driven across the country searching for something. A new beginning. A different life. She made it to the forest. But whatever she found there never let her leave. This is Missing Veil Files. Case File, Episode 7.
A series researched and narrated by Bria, Zach, and Lindsay, host of the Veil of Echoes podcast.
Missing Veil Files exist to keep names spoken when the world grows quiet, to honor the missing, and to stand with the families still searching for answers. Each case is more than a mystery. It's a life interrupted. And as long as these stories are told, they are not forgotten. If there is a case you believe deserves to be told, you can reach us through the Veil of Echoes podcast on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. Or email us directly at veilofechoespodcast@gmail.com.
This case does not begin with a clear explanation. It begins with a scene. A vehicle, hidden from the road, crushed into the trees, but not entirely destroyed. Belongings left behind, as if someone had been there, and then suddenly wasn't. There are details in this case that do not fully align. The damage, the placement, the silence that followed. And whatever happened in that stretch of forest was not as simple as it first appeared. This case file concerns the disappearance of Leah Roberts. Leah Roberts was born on May 23, 1977. She grew up in Durham, North Carolina, a place surrounded by familiarity, routine, and a life that, for a time, felt certain. But by the age of 23, that certainty had begun to unravel. Within a short span of time, Leah experienced loss that would quietly reshape everything. Her father died of heart disease, and not long after, her mother was killed in a car accident. 2 losses, back to back. The kind that don't just change your life, they divide it. Into before and after. Those closest to Leah said something shifted in her. Not dramatically, not in a way that demanded attention, but quietly, internally, as if she had begun searching for something she couldn't quite name. She was intelligent, thoughtful, introspective. A student at North Carolina State University, studying Spanish and international studies. She had plans, a future that made sense on paper, but something inside her no longer felt aligned with that path. She began withdrawing, spending more time alone, reading, thinking, questioning things she had once accepted without hesitation. At one point, she became deeply moved by the writings of Jack Kerouac, particularly The Dharma Bums, a story about leaving everything behind in search of meaning, of truth, of something more. And somewhere in that reflection, that searching, Leah made a decision. She was going to leave. You know what this reminds me of? Have you heard of the, was it Christopher McCandless? The guy who, Emile Hirsch played him, Into the Wild.
Oh god, I haven't seen that in a long time.
That's a true story.
Yeah.
Because he left his life, too, to live, well, that was a
bus.
sad. I'd like to do one over that, too. But yeah, he was surviving off of, Miss Christopher McCandless, or ice, pretty much, because the meat he got from hunting went bad or something. He tried to preserve it or something, and it just didn't work, obviously. Yeah. Anyways,
He
that was
plays
a good
in a lot
movie.
of true stories.
Emile Hirsch, yes. I still love Lords of Dogtown. That's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Still, that was a good one.
Bonnie and Clyde.
Yes. Yeah, he's a good. Oh, have you seen that horror movie with him in it?
Which one is?
Well, he played in
what was that
Autopsy of
called?
Jane Doe. That was a good one.
Yeah.
I need to watch that one. I've never watched that.
You never watched it. That's a good one. But what was it called? They were thieves, and they they were running from, forgot what they were running from. But they found, I guess their car broke down or something, and they found a farmhouse. So they all went there, and then the grandson saw them, and he was telling them just to keep them on a low. They're just going to stay the night or whatever. And then I think the grandpa found out, and then they ended up being killers, actually. So they were, and they had this creepy looking whatever thing it was in the
I thought
tunnels below them. I think it was
I can't
it was
remember.
one of their family members,
I
but
believe I seen that one time.
it was
but
good. It was a good
I'll have to
movie.
look it up.
Yeah, but
It
anyways,
almost sounds like a Last House on the Left, but the farmhouse and the
Or like
grandson.
Barbarian.
Barbarian. I was getting ready to say
God.
Barbarian.
All those tunnels.
Ew,
Flappy tits. That was a disturbing scene.
That was very disturbing when you first saw her, and that's all you saw when
He just
I would have screamed too. Ah! What the fuck?
yeah. What did that thing? The person say you have to drink off her.
Yeah, you have to suck her nipple to get her milk because she believes you're her baby or whatever.
No, thank you.
Fucking weird.
I don't even like milk now.
Don't see milk the same way now.
Could you
Starting right
imagine?
now.
Okay,
No.
I'm disturbed now. All right,
Here it is.
moving on.
Have to suck some kind of fucking basement dweller's tits for her milk just not to get murdered.
She reminds me of like a ghoul off of Fallout.
Or the hag. She looks like a
Yeah.
hag
Yeah.
witch.
Oh yeah, like a what is that thing off of Skyrim called?
Ooh. She looks
It's
like
almost
something
like
off
a
of
mix
The
between a
Witcher.
harpy and a hag because it has feathers and it flies around sometimes.
Yeah,
That's
I don't
annoying.
know. It was different. Anyways, I don't know how that all went into this, but yeah.
At the time of her disappearance, Leah T. Roberts was 23 years old. She was approximately 5 foot 6 inches tall and weighed around 130 pounds. She had brown hair and hazel eyes. She was from Durham, North Carolina. Leah was last known to be traveling alone in a white 1993 Jeep Cherokee. These details matter. They are often the last confirmed pieces of someone's story.
In early March of 2000, Leah Roberts made a decision. She was going to leave. Not for a vacation, not for a visit, but to go. And on March 9th, she left her home in Durham, North Carolina. She packed her belongings into her white Jeep Cherokee and drove away. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. No clear destination, no confirmed plan, only that she needed something different. Those closest to her would later try to understand why. Her sister, Kara Roberts, would say, By the time Leah was 22, she had lost both of her parents, and here she was, on the verge of graduating. I think she just felt lost, like she didn't have a lot of direction, and I feel like she took this trip as a soul-searching trip. A search for meaning, for clarity, for something just out of reach. And for a time, that's exactly what it looked like. A young woman on the open road, driving west.
In the days that followed, Leah Roberts continued west, alone. There were no phone calls, no check-ins, no one who knew exactly where she was headed. But she left behind small traces, fragments of a path. Receipts later found in her vehicle showed that she had stopped for gas in Brooks, Oregon, in the early morning hours of March 13th, hundreds of miles from where she started. Later that same day, Leah arrived in Bellingham. At 2:10 p.m., she purchased a ticket at the Bellis Fair Mall Theater for a film called American Beauty. She sat in a theater among strangers, watching a story about searching for meaning in an ordinary life. A story about dissatisfaction, about longing, about wanting something more. And then, after that moment, there is nothing. No confirmed sightings, no verified contact, no one who can say where she went next.
9 days later, on March 18th, 2000, Leah Roberts' vehicle was found. Not on a main road, not somewhere visible, but down an embankment, off a remote logging road in Whatcom County, Washington. Hidden, her white Jeep Cherokee had left the road and come to a rest, deep in the trees. The front end crushed, the windshield shattered, branches pressed into the frame as if the forest itself had closed in around it. At first, it looked like a crash, a severe one, the kind that should have left no chance of survival. But when investigators looked closer, something didn't fit. There was no body, no evidence of injuries that matched the level of damage, and inside the vehicle, her belongings remained. Her wallet, clothing, personal items, left behind. Outside the Jeep, small details scattered in the dirt, and among them, cat food. Investigators would later believe Leah may have brought her small kitten with her on the trip.
That's depressing. That poor kitten. I didn't know. Oh, that's sad.
There was no sign of the animal. No sign of Leah. Only the vehicle, left behind in the forest, as if something had happened in the space between arrival and escape.
At first, the scene appeared to be a crash, but the more it was examined, the more questions began to surface. The damage to the Jeep did not fully align with the terrain. Investigators noted that the impact didn't match what would be expected from a vehicle leaving the road at that location. And then, there were tracks. Tire marks suggested that the Jeep may have traveled further into the wooded area, after the initial point where it should have stopped, as if it had been moved. Inside the vehicle, there were no clear signs of a catastrophic injury, no amount of blood that would explain a fatal crash. And outside, no footprints, no drag marks, no clear indication of where Leah had gone. Just a vehicle that looked like an accident, but didn't behave like one. Investigators would later consider the possibility that the crash scene had been staged, that the damage may have not happened the way it appeared. And if that were true, then whatever happened to Leah Roberts didn't start here.
Over the years, multiple theories have emerged regarding to what may have happened to Leah Roberts. None have been confirmed, but the details surrounding her disappearance continue to raise questions.
Some investigators believe the location where Leah's Jeep was found was not simply the result of an accident, but something constructed. The vehicle had traveled off a remote logging road, down an embankment, and into dense trees. But the damage did not fully match the terrain. The angle of impact, the condition of the vehicle, even the way it came to rest, felt inconsistent. There were also indications that the Jeep may have been moved after the initial crash, as if the scene had been altered, not to conceal, but to create.
Leah had made it to Bellingham, Washington. She was seen, documented, but after leaving the theater, her movements became unclear. Some investigators believe she may have encountered someone after arriving in the area. Someone she spoke to. Someone she may have trusted. Or had no reason not to. The remote location where her Jeep was found raises questions about how she got there. Whether she drove willingly, or whether she was led.
Yeah, I remember watching this on Disappeared. I could have swore one of their theories was like maybe someone put a brick or something on the
Pedal
to
and
make it,
make it look like she had crashed.
Yeah. The poor thing. She made it so across the whole United States just for this to happen to her. It's sad. It's awful. Foul play is considered a strong possibility in Leah Roberts' disappearance. The lack of physical evidence within the vehicle, no blood consistent with severe injury, no signs of a fatal crash, suggests she may have not died at the scene. And if she didn't, then where did she go? There have been individuals questioned over the years, tips that came in, leads that seemed promising, but ultimately led nowhere. No arrests, no charges, and no confirmed answers.
Some have questioned whether Leah may have chosen to disappear. She left without telling anyone where she was going. She was searching for something, a different life. But those closest to her have pushed back on that idea. Leah left behind her family, her sister, her life, everything she knew. And more importantly, she left behind her vehicle, her belongings, and possibly even her kitten. A voluntary disappearance rarely leaves that much behind.
Months after Leah's Jeep was discovered, additional items were found in the area. Personal belongings, including clothing, that had not been located during the initial search. Some of these items appear to have been placed, not scattered naturally, as if they had been moved or returned. Which raises another question. Who had access to them after Leah disappeared?
It doesn't make sense, because it says, I guess Kara had power of attorney over her bank account, so she was able to access her sister's financial records. She discovered that Roberts had withdrawn several $1,000s on the afternoon of March 9th, and that her debit card had been used to pay for a motel room near Memphis, Tennessee. The last activity on Roberts' bank accounts was at a gas station, purchasing gas shortly after midnight on the morning of March 13th in Brooks, Oregon. Police later discovered security camera footage from the gas station which showed Roberts alone and apparently in good condition, although several times she peered out into the parking lot while she waited for her transaction to be completed. And then it says, early on the morning of March 18, 2000, near Bellingham, Washington, a couple jogging along Canyon Creek Road, a side route of the Mount Baker Highway, noticed articles of clothing at the side of the road next to a slight curve at the top of the slope. Some pieces of clothing had been tied to the trees and branches at the roadside. That's weird.
Tied?
In the woods below, at the bottom of the steep embankment, the couple discovered Roberts' severely damaged Jeep and called police. Roberts was not present at the scene. Based on the path that the car had taken through the trees and the extent of damage, investigators determined that the Jeep had been traveling at nearly 40 miles per hour when it went off the road and down the slope. Contents of the vehicle was tossed around inside, consistent with a multiple rollover. But investigators found no blood or other signs of injury to an occupant inside the vehicle, such as shatter on the glass or stretching of the seatbelt. Investigators concluded that no one had been inside the Jeep when it crashed, suggesting that the accident may have been staged. So that's where the rock or the brick came in, I guess.
I can see that, only because, especially with there being no blood, all it takes is one person to wear a thing of gloves, drive the Jeep to an area,
Yeah.
put a brick on the gas pedal and let it go, and then leave.
Yeah.
And kind of stage the area to look like, you know...
So it's like, did she pull a Christopher McCandless, or, you know? But it also says blankets and pillows were hung inside the windows of the Jeep, suggesting that it may have been used as a shelter after being wrecked. Robert's passport, checkbook, driver's license, clothes, guitar, CDs, and other belongings were found scattered in the surrounding woods. Bits of cat food and a small cat carrier were found inside the vehicle. Poor cat. Suggesting that Roberts had taken Bo on the trip with her. Although the cat had never been found. Valuables such as $2,500 in cash and jewelry were also left behind, suggesting that robbery had not been the reason for the accident.
Probably some freak.
Yeah, like how deep is this embankment?
And then it goes in to talk about the ticket stub found in Bellingham.
From the movie?
That was purchased from a March 13th afternoon screening of American Beauty. I've never seen that movie, by the way. But then it says near the theater was the mall's only sit-down restaurant where Heath and Kara believed that Roberts might have gone for a meal. In the restaurant, police interviews with 2 customers yielded information. Both men indicated that they had met Roberts in the restaurant on March 13th, where they had sat on each side of her in the restaurant's counter. The men recalled talking with Roberts about Kerouac and her planned road trip. One of the men claimed that Roberts had left with a third, whom he heard her call Barry, and provided a description for a police sketch of the man. However, neither the other man nor any other customer who had been in the restaurant at the time could corroborate the third man's existence.
So...
This just gets weirder and weirder.
He probably sent him on a goose chase.
And then a few days after the Jeep was discovered, a man called the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office due to reporting a sighting. He claimed that his wife had seen Roberts, disoriented and confused, wandering around a gas station in Everett, closer to Seattle. After disclosing this information, he seemed to panic and hung up before identifying himself. Police nevertheless consider the tip credible. For 2 weeks in April of 2000, police searched Roberts near her Jeep's crash site. Dogs trained to sniff for corpses, metal detectors that could find the metal rod in her leg, and helicopters were used in the search, but no new evidence was ever discovered. Oh.
It does seem a little sketchy.
And then... Sorry, this just gets more interesting and interesting. Okay, and then it says... Sorry, I'm just reading all this because it's interesting. I didn't even... Says investigators continue to examine Roberts' Jeep, joined by the FBI, who had become involved because the vehicle had been found on federal land. They found her mother's engagement ring, which Roberts wore constantly, under a floor mat inside the vehicle. Roberts' friends in North Carolina said that she treasured the ring for the connection it offered. In 2006, Mark Joseph of the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office, the detective who had originally investigated the case, passed his files on to 2 younger detectives. While reviewing the case, one of them noticed that the car and its contents had not been fully processed for evidence when it was originally brought in. After deciding to re-examine the vehicle, investigators opened the Jeep's hood and found that a wire had been cut, allowing the car to accelerate without anyone having to press the gas pedal.
Interesting.
This discovery confirmed early suspicion that no one had been in the car when it left the road, and thus it had been purposely wrecked. The detectives also found a fingerprint under the hood of the Jeep and male DNA on an article of Roberts' clothing. These new leads led investigators back to the man who had claimed Roberts left that restaurant with, the third man she called Barry. So it was the Bellis Fair restaurant. As no one could corroborate the witness's statements, police fingerprinted and DNA tested him to rule out his involvement in her disappearance.
Of course.
So, the witness's fingerprint did not match the one discovered under the hood of the Jeep, but the results of the DNA sample have not been disclosed.
And why the fuck not?
I don't know. I mean, I feel it's obviously foul play definitely happened.
Why is it a lot of these cases are like, well, this wasn't initially tested. You didn't even try to test it?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you didn't have most of the stuff back then, but you could have did something.
Mm-hmm.
You could have opened the hood. That could have probably been a good start. You didn't even open the hood to be like, oh, there's a wire snipped.
Yeah.
Like, well, it took you how many? 6 years after she disappeared? You said it was 2006 when they did this?
Yes.
It was 2000 when she disappeared?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's one of the...
It's obvious something sinister happened.
It seems like one of the easier things to do when a vehicle crashes is to pop the hood to see what might have went wrong.
I've noticed a lot of these cases we've done, though. They don't do their full investigative work, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Until it's too late.
Because they're stupid.
Yeah, until it starts blowing up everywhere and people are like, why didn't you do this to start with?
Yeah.
Well, because you see, we didn't, you didn't even try. Like, come on now.
You know, it reminds me of that Vine from years ago of the little kid explaining that he has a dream, and he goes, and then it's like, you catch yourself doing that. And the investigators, that's what they're doing. Well, in this,
Yeah.
wait, what, no, what, yeah?
Yep.
We did that? No, you didn't, bitch.
God.
You missed something.
You missed a huge clue.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of things not available, but popping the hood, come on now. It's easiest thing to do during a vehicle
that just
wreck.
Sucks. Like 6 years later, and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, it looks like." I'm like, "Oh."
Especially if you look inside, you see no blood, no driver, windshields are shattered, front
it's
end's
obvious.
crushed.
Something.
Okay, so
That's why originally they thought someone put a brick on the pedal, but no, it turns out someone just snipped
a
the wire.
That's what I'm saying. Like, did they find anything in the vehicle when it rolled? Because they didn't mention anything about a piece of wood or a brick or anything that would make it accelerate without being.
I think that was just their suspicion at the time.
Yeah.
But then, like,
Understood.
how her belongings and everything was left behind, $2,500 in cash was still there, so
Her
that's
mom's
also
ring.
suspicious. Like,
Her mother's ring was under the floor mat.
Yeah.
That's not something she's just gonna leave behind. So I mean,
No.
definitely, probably, unfortunately, foul play.
That's sad. I hate people.
Oh yeah, it's 100% foul play involved.
Bojangles.
Asshole. There are gaps in this case that have never been filled. Moments where something happened, but no one saw, no one heard, and no one has been able to explain. A young woman drives across the country, reaches a quiet town in Washington, and then vanishes, leaving behind a scene that feels staged and a story that stops too suddenly. Leah Roberts has been missing since March 9th, 2000. Her case remains unsolved.
Over the years, investigators have continued to revisit the evidence. Her vehicle has been re-examined. The crash scene has been analyzed. And leads, when they emerge, have been followed. But none have provided a clear answer.
Law enforcement, including the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office, has stated that this case remains active. Not closed, unresolved.
Search efforts were conducted in the area where her vehicle was found. Volunteers, investigators, canine units, but no trace of Leah was ever located.
More than 2 decades later, there are still no confirmed answers as what to happen after she left Bellingham. No confirmed timeline beyond that day, and no explanation for how her vehicle came to rest where it was found.
The questions remain the same as they were in 2000. What happened to Leah Roberts?
A young woman set out across the country, searching for something, and somewhere along the way, her story stopped. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Leah Roberts, you are encouraged to contact the Detective Sergeant of the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office at 360-778-6600 or contact the Whatcom Communication Dispatch Center at 360-676-6711. Even the smallest detail could matter.
Leah Roberts was 23 years old. She left her home in Durham, North Carolina, and began a journey across the country. A search for something more.
Her vehicle was found on a remote logging road in Washington, crushed into the trees, left behind. A scene that looked like an accident, but may not have been.
And somewhere between leaving home and that quiet stretch of forest, her story stopped. But hers is not the only story still waiting for answers.
Her family continues to search, to speak her name, and to ask the questions that have never been answered.
What happened to Leah Roberts?
As long as her name is spoken, this case is not over. This has been Missing Veil Files. Until next time, keep your ears open.
And the veil closed.